Hello, everyone. This is Yuri, and we are live. This week has been very different. Hopefully, some of you or all of you were following the news. And for those of you actually who regulars on my channel, you know that I stay away from politics. That's not something that I like to discuss. That's not something that I typically interested in. Quite frankly, it's never been my thing. Well, this week it became impossible to ignore what's going on politics, to ignore what's going on in the world of politics. Because this week, my home country of Russia invaded Ukraine. They did it in a way that leaves more questions than answers. They did it in a way that resembles tendencies of the past aggressors. And make no mistake about it, now the entire country is being looked at as an aggressor. The invasion of Ukraine was meant to be, from what we know, a special operation that was supposed to help clear Ukraine of extremist groups that allegedly filled were f- were very active in the country as of recent years. However, um, this more now it seems like it's becoming a war zone. There are real casualties of war. There are civilian casualties. There are people that's being captured as war prisoners. There are people who fleeing. Is no longer look anything remote like a special operation. It looks more like a war at this point. I'm praying for all the Ukrainians. I'm praying to stop the aggression. I'm praying that the leader of Russia, Vladimir Putin, start thinking about people and end this endless conflict, mindless conflict, unnecessary conflict. Because at the end of the day, it is people who are paying the price, only the people. And it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way in the world. It sure shouldn't be that way between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine and Russia always been brotherly countries. We speak the same language, we eat the same food, we have nearly identical culture, and we've been part of the same country for many, many years. This week, I changed my name from Russian prototype to peace prototype because I believe that peace is the only solution. Because peace is something that we all should strive for. And it's because I'm ashamed as well. I've never in my life been ashamed being Russian. This week I've have been ashamed being Russian. I have been ashamed to be associated with this nonsense. I have been ashamed that people say Russia invaded Ukraine because that's what happened. And because, make no mistake about it, Russian people are hostages in this situation. An average Russian does not want this war. The average Russian wants for this war to be over. It is very unfortunate to see what's going on what's going on with people in Ukraine, how many of them are fleeing their home country, how many of them are hiding in subways, how many of them losing their homes, how many of them just going through fears of what's going to happen tomorrow. None of that should be happening. My thoughts and prayers are with them. And and yet again, I'm here saying that I hope that the leader of the country can stop all of this. My prayers are also with Russian people who just trying to live their life, who trying to support their families, who don't want that war. Russian people going to pay a heavy price for it, a very heavy price, because Russia is going to become a completely isolated country. It's already been isolated, but it's going to go to a whole different level at this point, because now the country is going to be financially isolated. The country is going to be culturally isolated. Country is going to be on its own island. More and more countries withdrawing from any kind of collaborations, any kind of partnerships with Russia, and and I'm afraid that that's just the beginning. There is there's so many things going on, and I'm not here to sit here and to say that I understand fully of what's going on. One thing that I would caution everybody to do is please look at information from multiple sources. There's a lot of fake news out there right now. There's a lot of people who are trying to make information, or create a certain narrative that really doesn't exist. um, what I've been doing, I've been watching YouTubers, people who actually live in these regions near Ukraine. I've been watching different news sources. If you're watching only one source, you're not going to get the information. So don't even think that that's going to be the case. You have to be able to diversify the sources that you're utilizing, and find some YouTubers who at least live relatively close to geographical areas, so you can actually see what's going on. What's actually going on, from what I have seen, um, that there are people who in Ukraine who've been affected by it, regular civilians. There are um, there are a number of soldiers that's been captured and who've been questioned. So now all those different things being surfacing online. Um, there's a lot of questions on why some of the things happening, like why um, you know civilians near in the Ukraine being affected to the point that they've been affected by it, because it's meant to be a special operation to begin with. So there are a lot of more questions than answers right now. Um, be mindful of propaganda. There's going to be a lot of propaganda um, by different countries. And I think we just got to be careful with all of that. Um, it's going to be difficult to get factual information on what's actually going on. And that's why I was saying, you know, take time and figure out a few different sources that you can draw the informations from. There were a couple other things that I jot down, but I think it covers it. I think it covers it. Um, I never thought that I would be speaking on this. I never thought that that would be a situation that we're in today in 21st century. All of this, quite frankly, feels like a nightmare, just a bad dream that not supposed to happen, yet it's real. And I pray that it ends. I pray that it ends for all the Ukrainian people. I pray that it ends for all the Russian people who are just trying to live their normal life. And I pray that politicians start thinking about people. How to help Ukraine? There are some resources that you can utilize to lend a helping hand. UNICEF, UN Refugee Agency, International Committee of the Red Cross, Doctors Without Borders, and the International Rescue Committee. If you visit any of these websites, you should be able to see some ways that you can help people in Ukraine. I appreciate the outpour of support from this particular community. I know a lot of you reached out, a lot of you asked questions, how I've been doing, how, some of my family and friends who live in Russia, and you show a great amount of care and respect, and that means the world to me. I want to tell you that I'm truly humbled and touched by everyone's support. I have been in touch with my friends in Russia, and the, the people that I know, thank God they are okay, they are safe. I certainly think that there's a different narrative that's being created in Russia, and there's a lot of propaganda going on in Russia. And that's another very disheartening part of the entire situation, is because people believe some things that make no sense. I think some people there still believe that there's other countries to blame for Russia's misfortunes. There's still some people there that believe that, you know, Russia is being attacked from the West. And so there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things going on. And as I mentioned, I think we don't know more than we know. There's one of my friends in Moscow. He sent me some resources and YouTube videos, and he believes that it's all part of a big plot that's been planned for a long time, that it leads to something else. I don't want to start, some of these theories and stir more worry. At the end of the day, I think there's so many questions surrounding this entire situation. Um, what I think is important is that people speak on these issues, not just argue, but have a dialogue. People express exactly how they feel about these issues. And my feeling on this is very, very definite. There should be no war. There should be no innocent people engaged in this. There should be no people who want to live normal lives to be suffering. That's politics. That's the reason I don't like to talk about politics. That's the reason why I don't engage in those conversations a lot, is because I do see politicians as the biggest threat to this world, not people like you and I. It's politicians who F things up. I think regular people have a lot more sense. And I think that we need to seek the truth. And I think we need to be very clear in what we believe. Because what we're seeing happening right now with Russia, I believe the byproduct of it is silence. The byproduct of it is indifference. And I think it's very tough for people to even understand why people not protesting, why people not expressing themselves and how they feel. But for some of you who've never been to Russia or who've never really experienced the Russian mentality, is that Russia has never been a democratic country. Russia has always been throughout its history governed by someone, led by someone. There's always been an ideology, there's always been a person in charge. So this is not to justify what's going on right now, but this is merely to say perhaps that contributes to the fact that there's no uprising, a mass uprising. There's also continuous efforts being made by the Russian government to suppress any kind of opinion. If you're going to go and protest on the streets, you're going to be put in jail. There are new laws going on now where you're going to not going to be able to even support people from Ukraine or anyone from NATO for that matter. And that just continues to tighten the restrictions. It continues to bringing us back to the Stone Ages. Russia is trailing closer to North Korea than the West. And that's very frightening. People are the ones who always will pay the ultimate price for the decisions of the government. That is the reason I'm saying that if we silent, we end up being involved in it by association. That's why it's important to speak on these issues and to have a dialogue and to at least to attempt to hold people accountable. And it has not been happening in Russia for years. I'm gonna leave it at that, my friends. I could speak on it more, but I do not think it's a very happy topic to discuss right now. I know it's actually a tough topic of discussion, but I wanted to make sure I make a statement on it so everyone knows how I feel, so everyone knows that I'm against war, so everyone knows that I stay by my Slavic Ukrainian brothers and sisters. And I want for normal Russian people to have a chance for a decent life, not filled with anger from outside, not filled with sanctions, not filled with hatred from its whole government. Russian people deserve more. Let's look who we have in the house. We have Latanya in the house. We have Jamie in the house. We have Deborah Duncan in the house. We have Heather in the house. We have Joanna in the house. We have Felicia in the house. We have Lindsay in the house. We have Becky in the house. We have Daphne in the house. We have Valerie in the house. We have Lilium in the house. Shout out to all my members who are here with me live. Appreciate you. We have Ruby in the house. We have D in the house. So many awesome people here with us. We have the Dolphin 1985 in the house. Thank you all very much for being here. Appreciate every single one of you. Today's topic is how men and women communicate differently. I made a remark about it last week, and I've been listening to this audiobook that I found very interesting because the concepts that's been discussed in the audiobook really made me think about communication. And the book is by John Gray. It's called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. So I wanted to be able to discuss some specific concepts from the book. To be frank, I only was able to get, I think, like 1/3 of the book. So if you like what you're going to hear, if you like the information, if it brings you value, be sure to do a couple of things for me. Be sure to smash the like button. Be sure to submit a comment, leave a comment. Let me know, what do you think about these concepts? Let me know if you deem it helpful. And also, as we go through it, just remind me to ask you about part 2 of this talk. Because if you deem it valuable, we can certainly have part 2 of this talk to expand on more concepts and to continue this discussion. Also, it would be very helpful if you leave actual comment, not in the live show, but the comment under the video itself. I'm actually curious if you can do that. So I know you're commenting right now in the chat, but I'm curious if you can actually leave a comment under the video. I think you'll have to wait until the live stream is over. So give me a favor. If you cannot leave a comment under the video right now, just leave a comment after the live stream and let me know whether you want part 2 or not. That would help me out a lot. And smash the like button, because every time that we're doing these live shows, I actually need to go through to see your comments, the comments that you're leaving right now during the live show. I have to go through and look at it while I'm watching the video. So it's a little bit more difficult to find. And these comments are actually not going to be available right away. So if you leave a comment underneath the video after this live stream, or whenever you actually would probably have to be after, not whenever you leave. But if you do that, if you leave the comment after it, then I can see it right away. I don't have to sort through all the different comments that you leave during the live show. So that would help out a lot. All right. And of course, communicate. Yeah, it looks like people saying we can until the live is done. So I appreciate you letting me know. So yes, if you could leave one after the live stream, that would just help out the channel, and it would let me know whether or not you want part 2. I'd be able to see it right away. So it would be awesome. Let's jump right in, shall we? I'm excited for it. And I hope you find it helpful. Continue on with your comments right now. Let me know what you think about all these things that we're going to talk about. So first, I wanted to read this introduction to you to set the stage for this conversation. A week after our daughter Lauren was born, my wife Bonnie and I were completely exhausted. Each night, Lauren kept waking us. Bonnie had been torn in the delivery and was taking painkillers. She could barely walk. After 5 days of staying home to help, I went back to work. She seemed to be getting better. While I was away, she ran out of pain pills. Instead of calling me at the office, she asked one of my brothers who was visiting to purchase more. My brother, however, did not return with the pills. Consequently, she spent the whole day in pain taking care of a newborn. I had no idea that her day had been so awful. When I returned home, she was very upset. I misinterpreted the cause of her distress and thought she was blaming me. She said, I've been in pain all day. I ran out of pills. I've been stranded in bed and nobody cares. I said defensively, why didn't you call me? She said, I asked your brother, but he forgot. I've been waiting for him to return all day. What am I supposed to do? I can barely walk. I feel so deserted. At this point, I exploded. My fuse was also very short. That day, I was angry that she didn't call me. I was furious that she was blaming me when I didn't even know she was in pain. After exchanging a few harsh words, I headed for the door. I was tired, irritable, and had heard enough. We had both reached our limits. Then something started to happen that would change my life. Bunny said, stop. Please don't leave. This is when I need you the most. I'm in pain. I haven't slept in days. Please listen to me. I stopped for a moment to listen. She said, John Gray, you are a fair weather friend. As long as I'm sweet, loving Bonnie, you are here for me. But as soon as I'm not, you walk right out of the door. Then she paused, and her eyes filled with the tears. With tears, there's no the. As her tone shifted, she said, right now I'm in pain. I have nothing to give. This is when I need you the most. Please come over here and hold me. You don't have to say anything. I just need to feel your arms around me. Please don't go. I walked over and silently held her. She wept in my arms. After a few minutes, she thanked me for not leaving. She told me that she just needed to feel me holding her. At that moment, I started to realize the real meaning of love, unconditional love. I had always thought of myself as a loving person, but she was right. I had been fair weather friend. As long as she was happy and nice, I loved back. But if she was unhappy or upset, I would feel blamed and then argue or distance myself. That day, for the first time, I didn't leave her. I stayed and it felt great. I succeeded in giving to her what she really needed me. I succeeded in giving to her when she really needed me. This felt like real love, caring for one person, trusting in our love, being there at her hour of need. I marveled at how easy it was for me to support her when I was shown the way. I think it's powerful for a couple different reasons. One, I can actually resonate with this because in the past, when I would be in a relationship and my girlfriend would act similarly, she was unhappy about something, and I felt like I was doing my part. My initial reaction would be kind of anger, not anger, but annoyance, feeling a sense of dissatisfaction, and really wanted to get away from a situation, not wanting to be around her. What's really cool about this piece is that this shows the power of communication. This shows how a woman, in this case his wife, who was in pain and who needed his support, able to actually say that and communicate it in a way that he understood. It was cool to see that he had enough humility to say, yes, right now, that's not your brightest hour. This is a tough time for you right now. And that doesn't feel good, this interaction that we're having, but I understand that you need me right now and I am willing to stay. So what it really shows the power of two-way street communication and both people being committed in that moment to make situation better and to help one another. Mm, 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 mm. Let us see. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Looks like there's one relevant comment. Communication and listening are both key. Yeah, so a lot of information today is going to be revolving around this particular concept of communication and the difference between them, between how men and women communicate. And so one thing that I should have mentioned is that what's really interesting about the book as well is that he frames it as if men are from Mars and women are from Venus. So you can get the book, you can read the whole thing, but he literally makes that separation and distinction. He makes it very, very clear that we might as well be from different planets as to how we approach communication. And that unless we start recognizing the difference in how we communicate, we're not going to be able to be effective in that communication with the opposite gender. All right. Speaking of which, let's talk about the differences. So, without the awareness that we are supposed to be different, men and women are at odds with each other. We usually become angry or frustrated with the opposite sex because we have forgotten this important truth. We expect the opposite sex to be more like ourselves. We desire them to want what we want and feel the way we feel. We mistakenly assume that our partners love us, they will react we mistakenly assume that if our partners love us, they will react and behave in certain ways, the ways we react and behave when we love someone. This attitude sets up to be disappointed again and again and prevents us from taking the necessary time to communicate lovingly about our differences. That's exactly what I was talking about, starting to talk about. There's a difference. There is actual difference in how we communicate. This is not just a preference. This is a general difference in how we wire to communicate. Let's see. Looks like Felicia said both parties got to communicate and listen on equal levels. A lot of communication comes when both don't listen to the other. They want to talk more than listen or talk less and pretend to listen. You read that book 25 years ago when it was all the rage. In my view, yes, it highlights the differences, but also drives a big wedge between the sexes. In the end, it solidifies these differences. I'm sure I've told you once before, my fiance says men are like dial-up internet while women are like DSL. It takes them longer. I have to be blunt with him so that he understands. Yes, there's actually a part of the book that talks exactly about that part, Lindsay. So it's funny that you brought it up. Alicia said, we are not really taught to be forthright about what we need and want. It's there and it's simple, but it's uncomfortable to be so vulnerable. It's a completely different way of life to guide someone. At the end of the day, there are more things that unite us. I have seen a lot of women hint things instead of just flat out saying what an issue or need is. I'm loving all these comments so far. It's so insightful. Keep them coming, please. It's all contributing to the conversation. So please keep them coming as we go through these chapters, okay? All right, so good intentions are not enough. Falling in love is always magical. It feels eternal, as if love will last forever. We naively believe that someone were exempt from the problems our parents had, free from the odds that love will die, assured that it is meant to be and that we are destined to live happily ever after. But as the magic recedes and daily life takes over, it emerges that men continue to expect women to think and react like men, and women expect men to feel and behave like women. Without clear awareness of our differences, we do not take the time to understand and respect each other. We become demanding, resentful, judgmental, and intolerant. With the best and most loving intentions, love continues to die. Somehow the problems creep up. The resentments build, communication breaks down, mistrust increases, rejection and repression result. The magic of love is lost. And I can attest to this too, because after so many arguments, after so much time spent together, after so much friction with one another, love does not feel the same. You are becoming more distant with the person that you once had a crush on or that you once held in a very high regard. The communication creates feelings, feelings create perceptions, perceptions create reality. And the reality may seem that this relationship not going to work. Let's continue on. Do we have some more comments? So current romantic interest gave me hints to a date. I kept asking if it's an invitation. In the end, I flat out asked him to be straight with me. I said I'm a direct woman. He said 100% he had never met a woman like me. Slavic man. It's actually pretty refreshing, Daphne, because there's a lot of people playing games nowadays. Nowadays, it's becoming more time consuming to navigate conversations. And it seems like a lot of people just not interested in being honest and straightforward. So I would appreciate that approach. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Very few people indeed are able to grow in love, yet it does happen. When men and women are able to respect and accept their differences, then love has a chance to blossom. And listen, I think it's easier said than done. Accepting the differences means that you, as a person, must accept things that you may not understand in your partner. You must accept things that feel alien to you naturally. So your nature may reject those things, but you must try to see it from that person's point of view. Accepting our differences. Through understanding the hidden differences of the opposite sex, we can more successfully give and receive the love that is in our hearts. By validating and accepting our differences, creative solutions can be discovered whereby we can succeed in getting what we want. And more important, we can learn how to best love and support the people we care about. Love is magical and it can last if we remember our differences. Women are settle. Men don't understand settle. We think they are mind readers. They are not. We must be very clear with intentions or things we want. If you want food but tell him nothing, then get mad when he brings you nothing. That's your fault. Men are straightforward. This is also, uh, Valerie, it's so cool that you mentioned that because it's also in this book, that exact point, pretty much. Yeah, Daphne is a straight shooter, so is Felicia, which I love. Exactly. Straight shooter, I like that. Yes. No coincidence, Heather and I both are Aries. Here we go. Bring the Zodiac into that. I tend to shut down during a disagreement. It's something I'm working on. It's a self protection mode I fall into due to past abusive situations. But I managed to tell my boyfriend this, and he has been understanding ever since. Oh, we have a lot of Aries in here. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. This is going to be all exciting. Which view should I use? Let's go with this one. Mr. Fixit and the Home Improvement Committee. The most frequently expressed complaint women have about men is that men don't listen. Either a man completely ignores her when she speaks to him, or he listens for a few beats, assesses what is bothering her, and then proudly puts on his Mr. Fix-It cap and offers her a solution to make her feel better. He's confused when she doesn't appreciate this gesture of love, no matter how many times she tells him that he's not listening. He doesn't get it and keeps doing the same thing. She wants empathy, but he thinks she wants solutions. How many times before did I say that in my videos and in my content, in my live shows? Can any of you tell me you heard that before from me? This is not an ego boost, by the way. But I talk about that, it seems like every other week, that men are solution oriented. Men always want to arrive at a solution. We want to fix things. That's how we evolved. The natural tendency is to say, okay, I have a problem. That's point A. How do I arrive at the solution? Point B. Because we naturally wired that way. That's how men operate. We need to be able to find an outcome. I think it's easier to ignore communication issues while in the honeymoon stage, 100%. Which, by the way, in another book that I've been listening, it mentions that honeymoon stage can last anywhere between 12 to 18 months. Now, that's a lot. 12 to 18 months, that's a long time. So you technically don't see, you might not see the true nature of the person that you're dealing with, your partner, someone you're dating, up until 12 to 18 months. That's a long time, yo. Directness and keeping calm were not easy for me. I had to learn to communicate when I just needed an ear to listen and not a solution or advice. That's right, Daphne. I talk about this all the time. That's a solidification. Is that a word? It solidifies that this channel is legit. Take a screenshot. Legit. Yes. So if you just need comfort, give them something to do to comfort your EI: bath, massage, hug, wine. Women complain and want an ear to listen. Men try to fix the problem. Correct. That is correct. My fiance always wants to fix anything and everything that is bothering me. It stresses him out when he can't get the answer immediately. This is why we're doing this. This is why we're doing this. Let's continue on. I love it. Keep them coming. The most frequently expressed complaint men have about women is that women are always trying to change them. When a woman loves a man, she feels responsible to assist him in growing and tries to help him improve the way he does things. She forms a home improvement committee and he becomes her primary focus. No matter how much he resists her help, she persists, waiting for any opportunity to help him or tell him what to do. She thinks she's nurturing him while he feels he's being controlled. Instead, he wants her acceptance. This is deep, yo. This is deep. We need to emphasize that very, very much. Men want acceptance. We don't want a home improvement committee in our woman. That is not what we after whatsoever. So, if you cannot accept a man the way he is, isn't it something I talked about too? Look, it's magic. It's magic how it happens. I didn't pick this book because I was looking to confirm my beliefs. Heaven did that. Heaven did that. So there's something to these concepts since a person who is PhD and who, supposed to know. I think he's a psychologist, I believe, and he had patients that he also uses examples based on the conversations that he had with, and he draws from these examples. So he actually had practice at the time. So this is not just some average Joe. That is a person who's been interacting with a lot of people. And so for him to confirm these beliefs that I've had, this is kind of feels surreal in a way. But the point being is that man wants acceptance. If you cannot accept a man as a woman, don't even be with him in the beginning. Now, does acceptance mean trust? It means to give yourself away? I'm not saying that. Acceptance just means that you're going to accept this man as he is. You're not his mom. You're not going to try to change him. You're not going to try to improve him. If man loves you, which this book is going to talk about also, if man cares about you, with time, man is going to be willing to self-improve. Men often marry women hoping they don't change. Women often marry men hoping they do. Oh, what a deep, deep thought. What a deep, deep thought. Do not do this. I'm not a dating expert. Take it with a grain of salt. But if you're going to marry a man hoping for him to change, it's kind of like in a way buying an iPhone, saying, well, my iPhone specifications will upgrade itself down couple years down the road. That example definitely not going to happen with men. I mean, I suppose you have a slim chance, but that seems rather a shot in the dark to take. I would not count on that. No, sir. No, ma'am. This goes for both men and women. We can only thrive in love when we are fully accepted for who we are. Bingo. There is also a big difference between helping and supporting your man and trying to change him. I think that often gets confused. Yes. Helping and supporting your man is not one and the same as trying to change your man. Completely different things. Too many women marry a challenge. Oh my God, that's hilarious. Someone they are not comparable with, so they can mommy him and fix him to their standard. By the way, you have to understand that man, in many instances, will resent a woman like that. I can again use the example of from my past. I didn't really talk a whole lot. I didn't have a specific live show about this particular relationship, I don't believe. But I used to live with my partner when I graduated from grad school, and we lived together for a year and a half, and we started growing apart for a number of reasons, but one of them, definitely a big one, was communication aspect. And at times, I felt like she was mommying me, parenting me. She was younger, a lot younger than me, but the age is not even the problem, but approach was the problem. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand it. And I started resenting it and pushed back more and more and more. And then we just start clashing more. And ultimately, the relationship did not work. Maybe I needed that book a little bit earlier. And she definitely needed it too. We both needed to have this book before we got into this relationship of ours. But don't marry a challenge. This is not this is not a video game. This is life. It's going to be hard as it is. It's going to be hard when you're sure that you're marrying the right person. You can date, right? It depends on what your perception is of it. You can date and you can kind of test the waters and see if there's possibility of that person being open for growth and development. But don't marry that person. That's madness. I have seen that my being that me maybe you mean I have seen that me being blunt is not taken at face value, because many men believe this boilerplate that women hint at what they want. This is a real hindrance to merely operate on stereotype. No healthy man wants a mommy. I certainly don't. I have a mother, and I only have one mother, and I don't intend on having another mother. I want a romantic partner. I want, of course, a friend long term. I want a supporter. I want somebody who can complement my life. And that means that even when things don't go well, that this person can still support me in a loving and kind way and be honest with me. Give me constructive criticism, but in a supportive way, if that makes sense. She doesn't need to parent me. That is a bad strategy. It is not going to work. Being controlling or a mommy leads to resentment. I do believe that. Certainly does not lead to anything positive. It certainly doesn't. Let's continue on. Keep these comments coming. If you are just joining us, be sure to smash the like button. Be sure to share this to someone who needs to hear it. We talk about communication and the difference in communication between men and women. Such an important topic, yo. Such an important topic. We must get that knowledge. We must spread that knowledge. This can help relationships. This can save relationships. That can help us to thrive in our relationships as long as two people working at it together. I'm simplifying it. There are other things that actually come into play, but communication is a big, big part of it. We always talk about communication, and this is yet another proof how important communication is. Let's continue on. We just learned that Mr. Fix It All and Home Improvement Committee are terrible ideas when it comes to relationships. A man's sense of self is defined through his ability to achieve results. Let me repeat that. A man's sense of self is defined through his ability to achieve results. If you're not going to let him achieve results, you're taking away his manhood. And what I think some women don't understand is that even if you can turn this man into somebody you want and mommy him and parent him, think about the fact that you may end up resenting him because he's not a self achieved man. Let them give him opportunity to do that on his own. To offer a man unsolicited advice is to presume that he doesn't know what to do or that he can't do it on his own. Man should know how to solve his own problems. You can ask a question. You should ask a question. Hey, what about this? Or maybe, how you going to handle this, right? Just to kind of see what he's thinking. But don't solve problems for him. That's not going to help the relationship. And by the way, it's not just the problems. It could be mundane things, everyday things. If he's, I think one of the examples given in the book, actually it wasn't in this book, but one example that makes sense to everyone. You driving with your man somewhere. Your man is behind the wheel. Your man has GPS by his side. Your man will get you to the destination. That's not of your. Don't worry about getting to a destination. If you start questioning and trying to provide assistance with his mission to get you to the destination, this is an unsolicited advice. It doesn't help the situation. You have to make a decision whether you trust this man or you don't. If you don't trust this man, don't be in the same car with this man. I would argue why'd you be in the relationship with that man? It's a whole different story. But in this instance, allow him to get you to the freaking destination. Let's see some comments. Actually, let's do one more before we jump in. A woman's sense of self is defined through her feelings and the quality of her relationship. We talk about this all the time. We talk about how men and women communicate differently, and feelings is something that's very difficult for men to grasp and to understand what exactly this means, because we quite frankly don't operate the same way. When a woman resists a man's solutions, he feels his competence is being questioned. As a result, he feels mistrusted, unappreciated, and stops caring. His willingness to listen understandably lessens. By remembering that women are from Venus, a man at such times can indeed understand why she is resisting him. He can reflect and discover how he was probably offering solutions at a time when she was needing empathy and nurturing. Here are some brief examples of ways a man might mistakenly invalidate feelings and perceptions to offer unwanted solutions. See if you can recognize why she would resist. You shouldn't worry so much. But that is not what I said. It's not such a big deal. Okay, I'm sorry. Now can we just forget it? Why don't you just do it? But we do talk. You shouldn't feel hurt. That's not what I meant. So what are you trying to say? But you shouldn't feel that way. How can you say that? Last week I spent the whole day with you. We had a great time. Okay, then just forget it. All right, I'll clean up the backyard. And I don't have the other part of it, do I? Yeah. All right, I clean up the backyard. Listen, they should be teaching these things in school. Why these things are not taught in school? These things should be courses that students are taking because these are important things. I wish I knew that information before. Nobody told me that, as a man, I need to be able to validate women's feelings. Let me know if in the comments, by the way, you agree. Do you agree that men should validate women's feelings and perceptions as opposed to offer solutions? Let me know in the comments if you agree with that. If you don't agree with that, tell me why. The question is, should men validate women's feelings and perceptions? And tell me why if you disagree. Not all men are straightforward. I must have married two women if that's the case. I think it's a personality thing, or I learned behavioral because that's what one sex has been willing to mold to. Mothering your man will just prevent his own development. I must admit, as a very caring and nurturing person, I can get that balance wrong sometimes. And listen, we having a heart to heart conversation online, right? Nobody else can see it. It's just 16 of us, very intimate. My point is, it takes humility to recognize your own imperfections. Because for me, even to speak about these things and realize, like, oh man, I did mess up in the past. Oh man, I could have done this so much better in the past. That's not always easy to do. It's easier to say, well, whatever, I disagree. It's harder to look inward. It's harder to do some self reflection and to figure out what could have been done better or what you're not currently doing that you could be doing better. Difference between supporting changing someone. He wants to start a business, help him research how. You don't think it will work, so you try to change his mind or redirect him. Yes, that's a good example. Allow him to make decision. If he wants to start a business, allow him to do that. Even if you don't want to help him, allow him to do that, right? That's another part of this Jamie's example. So maybe you are too busy yourself right now. You don't have time to help him. And maybe you feel bad that you don't have time to help him because you're a nurturing woman. Well, guess what? Allowing him to do it on your own is way, way better than trying to change his mind about starting a business. You can have a conversation about it. You can ask questions and figure out why he wants to start business. You can provide your take on it, but as far as changing his mind on it, that's where things change. I'm listening, not commenting much. Speaking of momming, my child just communicated to me that she about to starve to death. Let me go make this teenager some food. Please do. Please feed your children. Do not let this live show deter you from feeding your children. From an energetic, tantric perspective, the masculine leads and initiates, the feminine yields and nurtures. Wide, multitasking focus of energy. You should never tell people how to feel. You are not them. It invalidates and tells them they don't have it right to feel that way. Feeling validation is an important skill for both as a starting point. No, sometimes as women our feelings are irrational for no reason, like getting mad at a friend for a dumb reason and it's a dumb reason. Don't validate that. Well, I don't. Good point, Valerie. Good point. I wasn't saying that you should validate women every single time. So you should still pick and choose where you validate a woman. You should still ask questions. You should still, you know, try to be as objective as you can. If it's not a good situation, provide feedback that, hey, you know, why you feeling that way? Is there something behind this interaction, right? Because, you know, if she's getting mad at the friend, is there something that friend did to make her feel that way? Because if it's a little thing, shouldn't be happening, right? I agree, validation. If men validated their woman's feeling and women validated their man's problem solving strength, that's a great starting point during arguments. Indeed. Every feeling is valid. Not all reactions and behaviors as a result of it are. That's my 2 cents. Both men and women have these emotions. I'm a little torn on the matter. I'm a little biased. I want my feelings validated at times, but I know my emotions are not logical at times. That's why I need my husband to know what's right. It's a great point. Appreciate you being honest about it, dear. You can validate their feelings without agreeing that they are right or wrong. That is a different issue. Ooh, that's a good one too. So, validating but not agreeing. Interesting. I think people confuse the feeling with the reason. Feelings don't need reasoning. They are all valid. Wow. Some you guys are dropping some gems. I like that. This is awesome. I willingly take advice and or listen to solutions, but when the solutions is coming from a logical standpoint, it's harder for my emotional brain to latch on. Let me vent, then help me fix. Nice. I think beyond the man's validating his beloved's feelings is validating her importance to him by listening, but also asking what she needs in that moment. Listen or solutions. Very nice. It's what Jamie said above. Yes. All right, let's continue on, my friends. This is great conversation. Keep your comments coming. I think we talked about home improvement committee enough, so I'm going to skip one or two things. All right, here we go. Men go to their caves and women talk. One of the biggest differences between men and women is how they cope with stress. Men become increasingly focused and withdrawn, while women become increasingly overwhelmed and emotionally involved. At these times, a man's needs for feeling good are different from a woman's. He feels better by solving problems, while she feels better by talking about problems. Let me repeat that again. He feels better by solving problems, while she feels better by talking about the problems. I think this might be one of the biggest disconnects that men and women have in a relationship. Men don't get the part that women just want to vent and talk. Women don't get the part that men are wired to get to solutions. What is the compromise? How can we meet in the middle? Men need to understand that we need to listen sympathetically. Women need to understand that men want to get to point B. Not understanding and accepting these differences creates unnecessary friction in our relationships. Let's look at a common example. When Tom comes home, he walks to relax and unwind by quietly reading the news. He's stressed by the unsolved problems of his day and finds relief through forgetting them. His wife Mary also wants to relax from her stressful day. She, however, wants to find relief by talking about the problems of the day. The tension slowly building between them, gradually becoming resentment. Tom secretly thinks Mary talks too much, while Mary feels ignored. Without understanding their differences, they will grow further apart. You probably can recognize this situation because it is just one of many examples where men and women are at odds. This problem is not just Tom and Mary's, but is present in almost every relationship. Solving this problem for Tom and Mary depends not on how much they loved each other, but on how much they understood the opposite sex. Without knowing that women really do need to talk about problems to feel better, Tom would continue to think Mary talked too much and resist listening to her. Without knowing that Tom was reading the news to feel better, Mary would feel ignored and neglected. She would persist in trying to get him to talk when he didn't want to. These two differences can be resolved by first understanding in greater detail how men and women cope with stress. And then they go into another example, looks like. How many people actually say to each other, hey, this is what I need communication wise? How many people do you think do so much introspection and understand their own needs and then ability to communicate their own needs, communication needs, that is, to their partner? And then if that case is being fulfilled, are their partners going to compromise, or they're going to listen? Are they going to take it seriously? Are they going to implement, take this into account in order to improve the relationship? In other words, not listening slowly erodes her capacity to love him without tension and resentment. I think that this comes back to communicating properly. If you don't know why you are upset, say so. Don't just lash out. One thing I learned is to focus on I sentences instead of you. Example, I feel upset when you did this the other day. And it's also a direct way to communicate. So this is great. Example. Yes, validation helps us to feel heard and valued. Instead of why did you go out, instead of staying home with me, maybe say I need you to stay home tonight instead of going out with your friends. Better yet, Joanna, you can say, I really feel lonely tonight. Can you please stay with me at home tonight? Because I also think that when you can ask a direct question, and with the direct question, it's less authoritative. It's more like, hey, can you do this? Right? It's like taking a step forward as opposed to saying, because I need could be taken a little bit differently. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it's also tone of voice and delivery, of course. But I think in this case, the question would be a little bit better method, just because it opening the door as opposed to giving an order. Women want an issue settled too, but if we feel it isn't taken care of, we will continue talking long after they have stopped listening. Or saying it's okay for them to go when you wanted them to stay home, then you get mad. It's crazy how people avoid communicating. Yeah, that is bad. That will create a lot of problems. All right, let's talk about coping stress. Coping with stress on Mars and Venus. When a Martian gets upset, he never talks about what is bothering him. He would never burden another Martian with his problem until or unless his friend's assistance was necessary to solve the problem. Instead, he becomes very quiet and goes to his private cave to think about his problem, mulling it over to find a solution. When he has when he has found a solution, he feels much better and comes out of his cave. If he can't find a solution, then he does something then he does something to forget his problems, like reading the news or playing a game. By disintegrating by disengaging his mind from the problem on his day, gradually he can relax. If his stress is really great, it takes getting involved with something even more challenging, like racing his car, competing in a contest, or climbing a mountain. To feel better, Martians go their caves to solve problems alone. When Venusian becomes upset or is stressed by her day, to find relief, she seeks out someone she trusts and then talks in great detail about the problem of the day. When Venusians share feelings of being overwhelmed, they suddenly feel better. This is the Venusian way. To feel better, Venusians get together and openly talk about their problems. So, do you see how the approach itself is different of dealing with these problems? If the approach itself is different, then we know we need to understand that in order for us to even be open to have the conversation with our partner. Because honestly, without this knowledge, you're going to start venting to me and have an extended conversation after work, and I'm already exhausted from work. The last thing I want as a man is sit there and listen for an extended period of time. That, of course, if I don't know that that's how you communicate, right? But if I know that that's what you need to do to really feel validated, well, it helps. It doesn't mean that I still going to be happy about 1 hour venting, right? The balance matters. Balance matters. It's not black and white. It's not like, oh, I know my woman need to vent. Now let me just sit here, and if she speaks with me for 2 hours or 1 hour after work, I'm just going to listen to it every day. That's impossible. That's why we're doing that, right? So on the other hand, if a woman knows that I'm withdrawing to different locations, just means I need a time to think. That does not mean I don't care. Don't follow me to the cave. Don't try to pick up more fights, more argument. Let me be for the time being. That's my time. Where's the happy medium? Where is the happy medium? We both need to work at it. Knowledge alone is not enough. The fact that you may understand that you need to vent, it doesn't, I would argue, it's not a good look for you to abuse that. It's not a good look for a man to abuse the fact that as a woman he needs to go to the cave. If he goes to cave all the time and he shuts down, that's bogus. Do people still say that? That's bogus. That's foul. When you start abusing this knowledge, you back to point zero again. The point is to take this knowledge and to make sense out of it within the context of relationship and make it work for that relationship. But if two people who are in the relationship are intelligent enough and they're caring enough for one another, this knowledge is helpful. I'm convinced that you can take that and you can figure out, okay, how we're going to engage, how we're going to incorporate this knowledge into our relationship. What does it practically look like on a day-to-day basis? Does it mean that if he comes back home or when he comes back home from the long day at work, is that maybe it's not the best time to vent right away? Maybe that means that when you do talk to him, from a man's perspective, maybe when you do end up talking to him a little bit later, you set a time to talk when you both are present in this conversation. And then from a man's side, when you both are talking, because you set a specific time frame to talk about it maybe on a daily basis or every other day, is that man also does not withdraw from the conversation. Man stays present in the conversation. So you see how it's like it's give and take. It's constant give and take. And if you're not willing to compromise, forget it. It's just not going to work. If both people are compromised, if both people working at it, if contribution comes from both sides, then yes, I think those things can be worked out. Your best way to help as a woman, in my opinion, is to let them have the time in their cave. Encourage them to go work out if they don't want to talk. Give them some space and time to cool down. Ladies, please understand that men don't do that. Like, we have these conversations and women talk with women. Men don't talk with men the same way. When we talk about, like, guys, when we talk about sometimes other women. We talk about shared interest. We talk about maybe like how cool would it be to do something, like go travel somewhere. We talk about movies that we've seen, but that's different with women. With women, talk about their day and their issues. Like, man, unless you have your best friend, I'm not just going to vent to my, my inner circle about my relationships. I'm not going to do that. There is a big difference, and about my feelings. That's another big thing. I'm not going to talk to my friends about how I feel, what happened at work. That is so alien to me. That is my personal stuff. I don't talk to that. That's just, I don't talk about it. I have I have no pleasure of discussing these matters with nobody. So understand, it's not only the talking part, it's about the subject and sharing the feeling part, right? When you want your man to open up, to be vulnerable, all that stuff, that's not something we do. Let's talk about vacation. Let's talk about, you know, let's talk about how to improve this relationship all day long. But understand, it's unnatural for men just to share feelings. That's not what we do. In my experiences, being direct doesn't help. Just find someone developed with character and never enter into relationship with the man you have to build. Working together is more appropriate. Time to decompress for the man. It took me so long to leave my husband be. I used to hate it when he was leaving at the time I needed him the most. You said it took so long to leave my husband be. That's a good point. After giving your man space, how about I loved when you listened when I was lonely last week. I feel stressed again. Is there any way you could change plans and stay, please? I prefer men to be older. Young men generally are undeveloped and disinterested in self improvement. Also goes back to the mother wound. Look at the way his family communicates first. It's important. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Sometimes you have to take turns on whose needs get met first. So, how do you do that? How do you do that? And why this decision has to be made? Give me an example. How would you navigate that? How would you choose that? Because I think that is critical point. Should there be, an order, a hierarchy in whose needs get met first? Can needs be met simultaneously? And if not, Jamie, I would like to hear, how do you make it work within the context of relationship? How do you convince your partner that your needs, or his needs for that matter, must be met first. Like what this conversation looks like. Would love to learn more about it. I cut it off at 15 minutes. I talk about the bullet points of what's going on with me and leave it at that. I feel like I'm able to get things off my chest and I'm not overwhelming it. I would say also there's a certain level of maturity that comes with this approach, right? Because you may be not going all the way in with how much you want to share. Maybe you have something in the tank to discuss, but you are taking a step back. It's give and take, right? You are taking his attention, you are taking his time. He's clearly listening to you, but you also giving, giving in the way that you are withdrawing the need of this elaborate conversation because you value his time, you value some things that you could be doing otherwise, a quality time together. You value the inner peace of a relationship. So you pick and choose these battles, so to speak. What's the most relevant and what's the most important thing that needs to be discussed right now? When I was working both jobs, I got too tired to even vent. I started to isolate myself, and my fiance thought something was wrong. I explained I'm around too many people. I need alone time. Here we go. Thank you for sharing that. At Kim, I do think it's not age related, but an issue of maturity. Maturity has nothing to do with age. Women and men both need to decompress. For women, is it easier for another woman to see from our perspective? So maybe get an outsider's perspective before you talk to your man. Men need quiet time, gym time, a car ride to think about the issue and deal with it before dealing with his partner. It took so long for me to understand that men don't talk like I do. When men talk, it's usually about something specific and to the point. That's exactly what we're talking about here. Daphne, I agree with you. I've met younger guys with much more maturity, but usually exception to the rule. Okay, I get that, but what I'm saying is don't go to them and push them. They don't want to discuss it. I would assess based on how upset each person is. If I really need my needs met, I say, I say, I know you had a hard day, but I really need you right now. You have to communicate. But what you also have to understand, though, because I get your point, Jamie, what you also have to understand, you don't know what kind of day he had. You may not realize that he had a shit show of the day at work. Maybe he nearly got fired. Maybe he got in an argument with his boss. Maybe he didn't meet a deadline at work. Maybe someone made him feel inferior and he couldn't do anything about it. He couldn't communicate because maybe it was his direct supervisor that's like, abusing him or doing something stupid. Maybe he felt trapped in his job right now. Like, you also might not fully understand what he's feeling. And when he comes back home, you know, he's not going to communicate that to you. Understand that. If you know how to read your man, some men don't even show it behavior wise. So it's like, that's what makes it difficult. Some men are stoic, they introverts, they don't show signs, but they might be going through hell internally. So understand, like, it's so much learning and it's so much, like, skill. I feel like to know and to really get your partner to be able to tell what they're going through. Because you may think you had a bad day. You may think that, right now your needs are the most important, but he may have had a worse day. And it would be the worst part for him to engage in these conversations. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen all the time, but I'm just saying that it could happen. I'm so sorry I was late. I came here to learn more. I will watch all of it again. I've been with my husband for 15 years, but I'm so rubbish because I often argue. I need to learn not to argue. We're all learning, so no need to apologize. I appreciate you being here, Olga. If both have equal need, someone needs to say, okay, first you, then me. Compromise is also important. Honestly, it's usually me who takes a step back. I have an issue with talking too much, thinking it will resolve things once for and for all. This is false. I need to say less and focus on the issue at hand and be less emotional when speaking. Love this, love this. Keep it coming. Keep these comments coming. A woman under stress is not immediately concerned with finding solutions to her problems, but rather seeks relief by expressing herself and being understood. Is that the case, ladies? Please, everybody who's watching right now, I need every single one of you to confirm or deny it. Please confirm or deny this statement. A woman under stress is not immediately concerned with finding solutions to her problems, but rather seeks relief by expressing herself and being understood. Is that what women do? Are you expressing yourself to seek relief and being understood? Is that what's happening? It looks like we have so true. Being understood is so important to me. So true for me. Yes. This is why I said you need to assess to decide who has the biggest need. Always know their day before anything else. Yes, when I'm stressed, I have this need for people to understand how I feel. Yes, we need to vent. So let me ask you this, because this is also very important. And I also need every single one of you to comment. Once that happens, once you vented, then what? Once you vented and you feel as if your man understood you, what comes next? I don't mean like what happens next. I mean like in your mind, what happens, I suppose, is at that point the conversation is over. Is there another step that you looking for? I'm very curious about that. So what happens next after you feel the relief and you being understood? Yes, it is from the book. It's from Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus by John Gray. So please let me know what comes next. Once you feel understood, what is the next step? Then we feel relief. Then we open to discussion, reasoning, etc. We feel validated. Interesting. It is sad truth. Oh, it is. I would say it's true. Got you. After I vented, I feel relief, but I also feel calmer and start feeling ashamed because I feel differently and start thinking rationally. This conversation about what? This conversation is about how men and women communicate differently. After I feel heard and listened to, I want to usually have one of these things happen: cuddle or find a solution or change the topic. Cuddle. That's good. Yes, we need to vent, but after I vent, I'm usually fine and I can move away from it. After I feel understood, I have a sense of validation and can be at peace with the situation. Sometimes just being understood is enough. If not, then I am open for suggestions for fixing something. Thank you for that. That's good. It's good stuff. Moving right along. Whoops. After another reason a man may resist listening is that he is looking for the bottom line. He cannot begin formulating his solution until he knows the outcome. The more details she gives, the more he's frustrated while listening. His frustration is lessened if he can remember that she's greatly benefiting by talking about the details. If he can remember that talking in detail is helping her to feel good, then he can relax. Just as a man is fulfilled through working out the intricate details of solving a problem, a woman is fulfilled through talking about the details of her problems. Let me repeat that. Just as a man is fulfilled through working out the intricate details of solving a problem, a woman is fulfilled through talking about the details of her problems. Should have used that view. The details of her problem. Something a woman can do to make it a little easier for a man is to let him know in advance the outcome of the story and then go back and give the details. All right? Let me repeat that again. Something a woman can do to make it a little easier for a man is to let him know in advance the outcome of the story and then go back and give the details. Avoid keeping him in suspense. Women commonly enjoy letting the suspense build because it brings more feeling into the story. Another woman appreciates this buildup, but a man can be easily frustrated. The degree to which a man does not understand a woman is the degree to which he will resist her when she is talking about problems. As a man learns more how to fulfill a woman and provide her emotional support, he discovers that listening is not so difficult. More important, if a woman can remind a man that she just wants to talk about her problems and that he doesn't have to solve any of them, it can help him to relax and listen. I believe somebody mentioned it in the chat actually already that maybe Joanna said that hey, in this case, I just want you to listen. I don't need a solution. I just want to be able to talk to you, and that's it. That will help your man out. Personally, I like to take a few minutes to think it over and discuss possible solutions with my husband. I think it depends on if it needs a solution or if I just need to let off steam for me, anyways. And by the way, ladies, listen, I'm going to say it. You might not agree with that. Picking time and the place, I think Daphne mentioned it. Picking your battles, I would say. Do you want to blow off your steam with your man or can it be your girlfriend? Does your man always need to be on the receiving part of it? Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be talking about these things with your man. I think that you should. But how much steam do you have every day to blow off? And how much emotional bandwidth does your man have every day to be able to handle that? And do you have to do it with your man or can it be another person? If your man withdraws into his cave every day to blow off his steam, what is your reaction? Would you like that? Would you like him to sit there and play video games just to blow off his steam? What would you think? So the legitimate question, I'm not being funny, the legitimate question I'm asking, does you need to vent to your man every day? Or can you vent to your girlfriend? I would love to hear your comments. True also, I just need to talk my problems out to my husband when he's constantly looking for a solution, which I don't even necessarily need. Good point. I do it with my female friends sometimes or ring my mom. For for you personally, what's the best and most efficient way for a woman to communicate a concern with you? Something personal and not general. The concern is with something you've doing or not doing. I suppose it's a question. What's the best and most efficient way for a woman to communicate a concern with you? Direct. Just say, hey, something's been bothering me, and tell me exactly what it is. Um, if, you know, I can help it at this point, obviously I would want to engage and find out, like, what my role in it is. Is it something that impacted the relationship because of my actions, or if it's an outside type of factor? And I also will evaluate that kind of from my perspective. Is it I think my natural tendency is evaluate that, is it like valid or not? But even just learning from this book, whether I think it's valid or not, I still need to be able to acknowledge her concern. And if she's communicating with me kindly, indirectly about her concern, I would make an effort to be appreciative about the concern and be open to have a conversation about it and to take steps to solve that concern. In my opinion, there are multiple steps to it. It's not just how you feel. It's it's also for you to be able to vent the problem first within your own mind, how legitimate it is. Is it worth, discussing, bringing it up in a relationship? The next step, if so, how are you going to bring it up and discuss it? How are you going to present it to your partner? Yes, diversity with different people. If we look to open, if we look to one person for all our needs, that's not good anyway. Only one person. Yes. Good point. I do pick and choose who I vent to sometimes. I go do a workout if it is just letting off steam, or I clean. It isn't a constant offload. Nice. Oftentimes, I would blow off steam by talking emotionally with my female friends. Then, when I'm calmer, I can just explain my day briefly to my man afterwards. Nice. I don't have to talk to him. I have started to talk with my best friend on Messenger or my mom. I used to vent to him all the time, but I have come to understand he doesn't need me to all the time. I also found it that just going for a run, doing something physical helps me vent things out. Sometimes I come back home after a run and I don't even remember what I was annoyed with. Nice. Let's continue on. The Venusians also found peace of mind when they finally understood that the Martian going into his cave was not a sign that he didn't love her as much. They learned to be more accepting of him at these times because he was experiencing a lot of stress. The Venusians were not offended when Martians were easily distracted. When a Venusian talked and a Martian became distracted, she would very politely stop talking, stand there, and wait for him to notice. Then she would begin talking again. She understood that sometimes it was hard for him to give his full attention. The Venusians discovered that by asking for the Martians' attention in a relaxed and accepting manner, the Martians were happy to redirect their attention. When the Martians were completely preoccupied and in their caves, the Venusians also did not take it personally. They learned that this was not the time to have intimate conversations, but a time to talk about problems with their friends or have fun and go shopping. Oh my God, that's literally what some of you said. That's crazy. When the Martians thereby felt loved and accepted, the Venusians discovered that the Martians would more quickly come out of their caves. This is awesome. This is literally like what some of you were saying. Hold on, where do we stop? Oh, I think I skipped. It's 39. When the Venusians became depressed, to feel better, they informed circles and began talking with one another about their problems. But this didn't seem to relieve the depression. They stayed depressed for a long time until, through their intuition, they experienced a vision. Strong and wondrous beings, the Martians, would be coming across the universe to love, serve, and support them. Suddenly, they felt cherished. As they shared their vision, the depression lifted, and they happily began preparing for the arrival of the Martians. Men are motivated and empowered when they feel needed. Women are motivated and empowered when they feel cherished. Goodness gracious. That's some heavy stuff. Men need to feel needed. Women need to feel cherished. I love that. Ladies, do you want to be cherished? If so, put the hashtag in comments. Cherished. I'm very close with my dad. When I have things to get off my chest and vent about it, if I don't talk to my husband immediately about it, I talk to my dad. What a perfect relationship between those Martians and Venusians. Yes, it's great. I want to be cherished. Cherished. This is true. I need to feel valued. Cherished is good too. And let me tell you something. I cherish this community. So right now, you're going to feel cherished in 3, 2, 1. Feel cherished. Feel cherished. Cherished. Oh man, this is great. Do you feel cherished through the internet? If you didn't, let me try again. In 3, 2, 1, you're going to feel cherished. Cherished. I cherish this community. All jokes aside, I love this community and I hope you do feel cherished. Feel prototype cherished. I'd rather be needed. So, Valerie, this is also one of those things. My question would be, can you actually say to your man what these needs are? Imagine if you identify these things on a piece of paper and you just tell your man, this is how I want to feel in a relationship. Like, these are the things that I need to be happy. Remember, men are solution driven, right? So if you tell us, this is almost like if you give us like one or two things, tangible things that we can look at and say, these are the things that I need to do to make my woman feel good. A man who cares about you would want to try to get there. A man who cares, like, they would want to make you feel that way. The name of the author is John Gray. John Gray. That's the guy who wrote it. We have still quite a few things to go through. Hopefully, you have time. Let me know if you still have time. Well, you know what? I'm going to just finish what I have, and then I'm going to ask you if you want part two. That's how we're going to do it. I appreciate the love, Daphne. It means a lot. It means a lot. I feel it. There's another quote in here that says, "Not to be needed is a slow death for a man." Deep, 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 deep. Let's look at this one. This one is going to be another important point, I think. Learning to give. A man's deepest fear is that he's not good enough or that he is incompetent. He compensates for this fear by focusing on increasing his power and competence. Success, achievement, and efficiency are foremost in his life. Before they discovered the Venusians, the Martians were so concerned with these qualities that they didn't care about anything or anybody else. A man appears most uncaring when he is afraid. A man's deepest fear is that he is not good enough or that he's incompetent. Just as women are afraid of receiving, men are afraid of giving. To extend himself in giving to others means to risk failure, correction, and disapproval. These consequences are most painful because deep inside his unconscious, he holds he holds an incorrect belief that he is not good enough. This belief was formed and reinforced in his childhood every time he thought he was expected to do better. When his accomplishments went unnoticed or were unappreciated, deep in his unconscious, he began forming the incorrect belief that he was not good enough. Just as women are afraid of receiving, men are afraid of giving. Just as women are afraid of receiving, men are afraid of giving. A man is particularly vulnerable to this incorrect belief. It generates within him the fear of failing. He wants to give, but is afraid he will fail, so he doesn't try. If his biggest fear is inadequacy, he naturally is going to avoid any unnecessary risks. Ironically, when a man really cares a lot, his fear of failure increases and he gives less. To avoid failure, he stops giving to the people he wants to give the most. Ironically, when a man really cares a lot, of his fear of failure increases and he gives less. Interesting. What are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on this? YouTube keeps censoring my comment third time. If a man needs to be alone after a long day to unwind, that's cool. If he wants to involve me if he wants to evolve me, even better. I'd like distressing with a roll around in bed. Nice. Your list should be a guideline, not a rule, Tom. You can't just give them a list of things. I tried that with my husband, and he sticks to the list religiously instead of being flexible with the list. I love the thought you put into helping the relationship. Is there a way you could explain the need for flexibility? Thank you, D. I appreciate you very, very much. I cherish you as well. I should try to explain the flexibility part. I like the conversation that's happening here. I really do. For those of you who are maybe joining us just now, we're talking about how men and women communicate differently based on John Gray's book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And we just talked about that men afraid to give, apparently. Goodness gracious, that's a lot to unpack. Well, we've been at it for almost 2 hours. Expressing feelings versus expressing information. To fully express their feelings, women assume poetic license to use various superlatives, metaphors, and generalizations. 10 common complaints that are easily misinterpreted. Goodness, I can't read, man. The 10 pause, deep breath. 10 common complaints that are easily misinterpreted. Misinterpreted. Women say things like this: we never go out. Men responds like this: that's not true. We went out last week. Women say things like everyone ignores me. Men respond like, I'm sure some people notice you. Women say things like, I'm so tired, I can't do anything. Men respond like, that's ridiculous, you are not helpless. Women say, I want to forget everything. Men respond, if you don't like your job, then quit. Women say, the house is always a mess. Men respond, it's not always a mess. Women say, no one listens to me anymore. Men respond, but I'm listening to you right now. Women say, nothing is working. Men respond, are you saying it is my fault? Women say, you don't love me anymore. Men say, of course I do. That's why I'm here. Women say, we're always in a hurry. Men respond, we're not. Friday we were relaxed. Women say, I want more romance. Men say, are you saying I am not romantic? Some interesting examples. Let's see. I think men give less when they don't feel respected or appreciated. I would agree with that statement. So if that is true, that there's more he cares, the less he shows, what can we do to help that? Or is that a him problem? See, I am not sure about that one. I honestly, that one doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Because I think the more it's kind of illogical, not logical. Because I think as a man, if you care more, you tend to give more. Um, so I can't, Jamie. This one is tough. I don't really know. If there is like pattern that could be observed with all men here. I can think of one. You know, giving less can be his way of either feeling we gave too much or emotionally cutting off when he catches feelings, and it's scary. I think when a man really cares, failure is in the very back of his head. Men check out when they feel disrespected by a woman, but men will try for someone who will try for them. Yuri, do men need compassion? Do men need compassion or space from a woman when they feel really stressed? Will they communicate when they want that support after they unwind alone. I would think that at times it could be the case. If you feel very stressed, this is actually part of what we talked about. Man can withdraw into his cave. This is a telling sign that he needs to be alone for some reason. I would argue, I would agree with the book that it's not the good time, it's not the best time to intervene with his alone time. This is his way of telling you that he needs space. And you need to give him this space, just like he gives you that space when he listens to you when you telling him about your day. So will they communicate when they want that support after they unwind alone? I think that you're going to know um, whether or not they do. If they don't bring up that, then that means no. If they will ask you a question, or if they will share something with you, or they will make kind of initiative to talk about this, then that's a telling sign that he does. And you can ask, a question. You can say like, hey, what's going on? And if you get response like nothing important, then that is your 100% sure sign that he doesn't want to talk about it. And you can't make anybody do anything. So if he doesn't want to talk about it, don't keep forcing him to talk about it. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. This is going to be another important point that I want to make right here. So this is the Venusian / Marshall Phase Dictionary. All right. Let's see. All right. Where were we? What is this? Okay, so let's start over here. Everyone ignores me. Translated into Marshall means today I'm feeling ignored and unacknowledged. I feel as though nobody sees me. Of course, I am sure some people see me, but they don't seem to care about me. I suppose I am also disappointed that you have been so busy lately. I really do appreciate how hard you are working, and sometimes I start to feel like I am not important to you. I'm afraid your work is more important than me. Would you give me a hug and tell me how special I am to you? Without this translation, when the woman says everyone ignores me, a man may hear I am I am so unhappy. I just can't get the attention I need. Everything is completely hopeless. Even you don't notice me. And you are the person who is supposed to love me. You should be ashamed. You are so unloving. I would never ignore you that way. So, as far as why man goes into their caves, is become quiet for a variety of reasons. He needs to think about a problem to find a practical solution to the problem. He doesn't have an answer to a question or a problem. Men were never taught to say, gee, I don't have an answer. I need to go into my cave and find one. Other men assume he is doing just that when he becomes quiet. He becomes upset or stressed. At such times, he needs to be alone to cool off and find his control again. He doesn't want to do or say anything he may regret. He needs to find himself. This fourth reason becomes very important when men are in love. At times, they begin to lose and forget themselves. They can feel that too much intimacy robs them of their power. They need to regulate how close they get. Whenever they get too close, so as to lose themselves, alarm bells go off and they are on their way into their cave. As a result, they are rejuvenated and find their loving and powerful self again. This is also an important point because we talked about how women can lose a sense of identity when they're dating, and they can become completely engulfed in a man. They can, structure their life around man's life. And I would argue all day long that it's a very dangerous predicament to be in. It could happen with man to the same extent. If he's completely engulfed in a relationship with that woman, if you're spending all the time together, doing all the things, you know, he may start feeling as if he's losing his own identity. And I actually can think of a friend who in a relationship, or I believe, like, I don't know if they, going through something or not, but that person that I think of going through this exact thing. And I actually, even myself in the past, I went through this thing to where you can lose your sense of identity as a man. I don't think it's a good thing for a woman, but it's certainly not a good thing for a man. You must remain your own person first. You have to know who you are. You have to have, your values, your beliefs. Hopefully you have a purpose. Hopefully you still can interact with your friends. Hopefully you can have your hobbies. Hopefully you can do things that make you feel your own person, that you don't refuse or forget things that make you you. And that's a critical point. And if your man is retrieving to his cave or stepping away from a relationship because maybe he feels like it's overwhelming, his way of going into the cave is the way to communicate that he needs that time. Understand that he's not going to talk to you about this. If you know that he's withdrawing, if you see that he's withdrawing, this is his way of telling you. This is also important because, as a woman, if you approach a man and say, well, you didn't tell me anything. No, read between the lines. If he's withdrawing, if he wants to be alone for any reason, hopefully it's nothing bad, but it's just regain his sense of identity. If he's doing that, he is telling you. He's just telling you with his actions, not with his words. And again, understand that communication will be conducted differently. You're not always going to have a man. For one thing, not all men talk, as we discussed already. This book refers to it as men have not been taught to say, gee, I don't have an answer. I need to go into my cave and find one. So don't always expect a statement from a man. If you see him withdrawing, if you see him going to the cave, he's showing you by his actions that that's the need. Women talk for a variety of reasons. Sometimes women talk for the same reasons that men stop talking. These are 4 common reasons that women talk: to convey or gather information. This is generally the only reason a man talks. To explore and discover what it is she wants to say. He stops talking to figure out inside what he wants to say. She talks to think out loud. To feel better and more centered when she is upset. He stopped talking when he's upset. In his cave, he has a chance to cool off and to create intimacy. Through sharing her inner feelings, she is able to know her loving self. A Martian stops talking to find himself again. Too much intimacy, he fears, will rob him of himself. So, to convey or gather information, to explore and discover what it is she wants to say, to feel better and more centered when she is upset, to create intimacy. Without this vital understanding of our differences and needs, it is easy to see why couples struggle so much in relationships. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think about that? It sounds like men need to feel empowered and keep his independence and choices in the relationship. There is that impulse many people have to control the other. Thank you. That helped me understand better. I will start giving men their space immediately if they retreat and take their word for it if they said it's all good. That's brave of you to be able to implement that so courageously, Joanna. I have to go, but I really enjoyed this conversation. We'll watch the rest later. Very important topic. Thank you so much, D. Let's see. We have a few more. I think it's continuous about the cave. It is important for women to understand not to try and get a man to talk before he is ready. Not my words, ladies. Although I did say that, it's in a book. While expecting this topic in one of my seminars, a Native American shared that in her tribe, mothers would instruct young women getting married to remember that when a man was upset or stressed, he would withdraw into his cave. She was not to take it personally because it would happen from time to time. It did not mean that he did not love her. They assured her that he would come back. But most important, they warned the young women never to follow him into his cave. If she did, then if she did, then she would get burned by the dragon who protected the cave. There's a dragon, ladies. Never go into man's cave, or you will be burned by the dragon. Much unnecessary conflict has resulted from a woman following a man into his cave. Women just haven't understood that men really do need to be alone or silent when they are upset. When a man withdraws into his cave, a woman just doesn't understand what is happening. She naturally tries to get him to talk. If there is a problem, she hopes to nurture him by drawing him out and getting him to talk about it. She asks, "Is there something wrong?" He says no, but she can feel he's upset. She wonders why he's withdrawing his feelings. Instead of letting him work it out inside his cave, she unknowingly interrupts his internal process. She asks again, "I know something is bothering you. What is it?" He says, "It's nothing." She asks, "It's not nothing. Something's bothering you. What are you feeling?" And then it goes into something else. The dragon would be the man push and get burned. Well, it actually makes a lot of sense because this is the time when a man will need his own space. He withdrawing to his cave in order to have the privacy, in order to have time to think, and in order for him to be alone. He needs a peace of mind. So if you continue, if you're pursuing him and if you're asking him all these questions, and if you're not giving him chance to be by himself, invent these things, then you're going to see a dragon. You're going to get in a fight, and that's going to get ugly. I don't mean physical fight. I mean like an argument. That's not going to help the relationship because he is trying to step away from this conversation. And I think that the misconception is that when men leaving, it's like it's terrible. Men should never leave a conversation. Where in fact, based on this, we're seeing that sometimes men need to. Sometimes men must step away. It's a normal thing for a man to deal with frustration or with lack of understanding or with stress that's been brought up by this conversation or this situation at large. And therefore, if we possess that knowledge as a woman, you no longer need, the stress of this moment to get the best of you. You need to understand that that's a normal process. And we also need to understand what it looks like in the context of that interaction. What that could mean is that if you living in a small apartment with someone, or you don't have, quote unquote, the man cave, man can leave the house. His car could be his cave, right? And what happens when the man leaves the house and just shuts the door? It's a big fight at this point. Women get very emotional about things like this. Women say like, "Well, how could you leave me? Like you just withdrawn yourself from a conversation. You don't want to talk to me. You are ignoring me. You don't care about me." No, I just need to be on my own. I need to be out of this conversation right now. It doesn't mean he doesn't love you. It doesn't mean he's not going to be back. It just means at this moment, he needs to step away from the conversation. And this is, I think, a fundamental disconnect that people have when it comes to situations like that. They automatically assume that man just doesn't care, man just doesn't love them, man doesn't want to listen to them. And in man's mind, you have to walk away sometimes. You get overwhelmed. You're better off to step away, not to say anything or not to do anything that you would regret later. So, in a way, it actually makes a lot of sense. Sometimes withdrawing yourself from a conversation, it's going to be a better thing to do for a relationship in the long run. The Martian Venusian phrase dictionary. Oh, there's more to it. So, I think that's going to be helpful. I'm okay, translated into Venusian, means I'm okay. I can deal with my upset. I don't need any help. Thank you. Without this translation, when he says I'm okay, she may hear I'm not upset because I do not care. Or she may hear I'm not willing to share with my upset. I'm not willing to share with you my upset feelings. I do not trust you to be there for me. I'm fine. Translated into Venusian means I'm fine because I am successfully dealing with my upset or problem. I don't need any help. If I do, I will ask. Without this translation, when he says I'm fine, she may hear I don't care about what has happened. This problem is not important to me. Even if it upsets you, I don't care. Next thing, it's nothing. Translated into Venusian means nothing is bothering me that I cannot handle alone. Please don't ask any more questions about it. Without this translation, when he says nothing is bothering me, she might hear I don't know what is bothering me. I need to ask me questions to assist me in discovering what is happening. At this point, she proceeds to anger him by asking questions when he really wants to be left alone. So you get the idea here. You get the drill, what they're trying to do and what they're trying to say. And so how to approach a man with criticism or advice. Without an understanding of how they are turning men off with unsolicited advice and criticism, many women feel powerless to get what they need and want from a man. Nancy was frustrated in her relationships. She said, I still don't know how to approach a man with criticism and advice. What if his table manners are atrocious or he dresses really, really badly? What if he's a nice guy, but you see he's got a pattern of behaving with people in a way that makes him look like a jerk and that's causing him trouble in relationship with others? What should I do? No matter how I tell him, he gets angry or defensive or just ignores me. The answer is that she should definitely not offer criticism or advice unless he asks. Instead, she should try giving him love and acceptance. This is what he needs, not lectures. As he begins to feel her acceptance, he will begin to ask what she thinks. If, however, he detects her demanding that he change, he will not ask for advice or suggestions. Especially in an intimate relationship, men need to feel very secure before they open up and ask for support. This is an important point. Men need to feel very secure in the relationship in order to open up and ask for support. In order to feel secure, we need acceptance, and we need love and acceptance. In addition to patiently trusting her partner to grow and change, if a woman is not getting what she needs and wants, she can add and should share her feelings and make requests, but again, without giving advice or criticism. This is an art that requires caring and creativity. And then it goes into more approaches. And I think I didn't end up making all the screenshots for those. Oh, goodness gracious, my friends. I think this is good for the day. This is actually all I had for this part. If you enjoyed this, if you want to see part two of this, give me hashtag part two in the chat. Okay. Give me hashtag part two. I guess it's better to learn these things while I'm single instead of never learning about men at all. I would agree with that. I am significantly older than you are, John, and I'm learning these things right now because knowledge set us free. Knowledge is better than ignorance. I don't mean intentional ignorance, but like if you don't know it, the lack of knowledge is the lack of knowledge. I've just ordered this book, even this simple I'm okay from his side. I was interpreting exactly the same Venusian way which John Gray describes. I'm so glad for this revelation. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad you find it helpful, Olga. Looks like we have some folks wanting to see part two, part two, part two. Looks like we have 8 people watching. 4 people said part two. What about the rest of you? Rest of you would like to see part two? Let me know in the comments. Speaking of part two, speaking of the next live show, we're going to do this next Sunday, March 6th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, USA. So, topic to be decided, but it looks like people are interested in part two. So, let's just go ahead and let me announce that I'm going to do part two next weekend. Also, realize that it's going to be next weekend is going to be only 2 days shy of International Women's Day. So I would most certainly love to have some panel guests to acknowledge and tell you Happy International Day in person. Happy International Women's Day, which is March 8th in person. I know that United States doesn't really celebrate that holiday, but most countries in Europe and Russia certainly does. Therefore, we're going to have a reason to celebrate you, ladies, uh, and a legitimate reason, International Women's Day. Um, it looks like we have more people who said part two. The Dolphin 1985. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm glad that you deem it helpful. Valerie said part two. So be it. Oh, cool. And also, we're going to be celebrating Jonah's birthday next weekend. So, how about you join the chat for a little bit so we can tell you happy birthday in person? Let me know in the comment if you'd be willing to come on for a few minutes next Sunday, Jonah. Hello, Lanichka. Appreciate you joining. We've been at it for almost 2.5 hours. We covered a lot of ground. But next weekend, did you like that? That was not that was very open, right? That was not discreet. When your nose itching live, you have to eat your nose. Next weekend, next Sunday, we're going to talk about part two. Before we get out of here, I want to remind everyone about Discord community. If you're not on Discord community, consider joining prototypefam Discord server, where you can connect with tons of amazing individuals directly and talk about different topics, ranging anywhere from Russian culture to Russian language, Russian culture and Russian language to food, anime, video games, relationships, of course, and many others. I also want to mention memberships. If you enjoy being part of the community, and if you would love additional access, such as emojis during these live shows, exclusive emojis for members, such as communication with direct communication via chats, exclusive chats for members, where you can hear voices, hear some other funny content, when you can be part of a support group of Prototype family, as well as receive some exclusive videos um, from me and gain more direct access to me through these chats and through these videos, then consider to become a member. Let me see if I can share this really quickly to show it. I think I should be able to. I'm going to just show you quickly how you can become a member. Share my screen with you. So right here where you see word join, if you click on that word, it's going to bring an introduction video for memberships. It's going to cover different levels of membership. You can choose one out of three. So you can select to be a drawing board prototype with loyalty badges and then custom emojis. You can become assembly line prototype with early access to new videos, um, photos and status updates, exclusive member only videos. And then you can choose to be showroom prototype with exclusive member Discord server, member group video chat. We did one yesterday, actually. That was pretty cool. You can also be a live show guest panel as part of this membership, and membership only polls. So there's a couple different options that you have that you can choose from in terms of memberships. And I would love to welcome more Prototype Fam members and continue on with this fun journey. It's been a blast so far. With that, my friends, it looks like Jonah said I can pop in for a minute near the beginning during work lunch. Cool. Sounds good. So we'll stay in touch and we'll make that, we'll take that, we'll make that, we'll take that, we'll get that going. All right. Before we get out of here, last thing, I want to thank everyone for joining today's live stream. We had a lot of people here today. A lot of information is being covered. Definitely want to thank all the members. Thanks, Joanna, for being here. Lanishka, thanks for stopping by. Thanks, Jamie. Appreciate the Dolphin 1985. Appreciate Valerie. Thank you, Kim, for being part of today's stream. Olga, appreciate your input. Daphne, watching from Europe. Olga and Daphne both in Europe. Appreciate that. Lindsay, it's been great to see you. I think Dia was here earlier before she had to go. I've seen Strong Ballerina in the chat. Thank you for joining. Let's see, who am I forgetting? There were some other individuals in here, but I think this was a core. So thank you. Thank you all very much. It's always a pleasure. Please stay safe in these crazy times that we're going through right now. Take care of yourself and take care of your loved ones. Please realize there's a lot of lies out there. So be very critical when you obtain your information about what's going on in the world, about what's going on with conflict in Ukraine, what's going on with Russia. As I started this conversation, I pray for Ukraine, and I truly hope that aggression will stop. I hope that if you have someone in Russia that you currently know, that you're dating, that they stay safe. I hope that you can continue your communication with them. I pray for the best. My friends, with that being said, have a great rest of your Sunday and have an amazing week ahead. All right. I appreciate every single one of you. Be safe and always be grateful. Peace.